The forest butcher of Kaliningrad. In the misty forests of Kaliningrad, where the scent of pine once promised prosperity, a respected Soviet forestry director turned into a monster, his axe dripping with the blood of betrayal. Alexander Alexeev, a man of honor turned thief, lured three Polish businessmen, Mieczysław Kowalewski, Mirosław Wilk, and young driver Anzej Danilowicz, into a deadly trap on October 17, 1994. Under the guise of a timber deal, their mutilated remains, hidden in the icy depths of a canal, would spark a manhunt that shook Russia and Poland, threatening a diplomatic crisis as Premier Chernomyrdin's visit loomed. Investigator Nikolay Vingreter unraveled a web of lies, blood-stained dollars, and a killer's chilling precision, but the motive, a twisted blend of greed and shame, left a nation horrified. 5 gripping chapters peel back the layers of this brutal crime, from Alexeev's rise in the Soviet system to his fall into corruption, the fateful deal that sealed the Poles' doom, a forest turned slaughterhouse, a desperate search for justice, and a trial that left more questions than answers. As the gallows loom, will Alexeev's fate bring closure, or will the forest's dark secrets haunt Kaliningrad forever? In the green heart of Kaliningrad, a man built a life in the forest, but what darkness grew within him? The crisp air of Kaliningrad in the late 1970s carries the scent of pine, sawdust, and the faint tang of Baltic salt as Alexander Alexeev strides through the dense forests near Żelazno-Dorożny, a small border town nestled against Poland. The towering pines, their bark rough and peeling, stretch endlessly, their needles a deep green with patches of brown, the ground a patchwork of damp leaves and pine cones, the murmur of a distant woodpecker echoing through the trees, the air humming with the promise of a Soviet future built on the ruins of East Prussia. A faded red banner flaps in the wind near the forestry office, its edges frayed, Cyrillic letters spelling, for the motherland barely legible, a rusted signpost reading Żelazno-Dorożny Forestry creaking in the breeze. The scent of opportunity heavy as the region's timber, prized for its quality, fuels dreams of progress, the murmur of a new era dawning for a man born to this land. What darkness grew within Alexeev, and how would it shatter lives? The scent of paper and ambition fills the air, Kaliningrad a verdant stage for a tale of greed and betrayal. Alexeev's early years. Born in 1958 in Kaliningrad Oblast, Alexeev grew up in a family of laborers, the air thick with the scent of toil and resilience as his parents, arrivals in the 1950s, worked to erase East Prussia's remnants, the murmur of their dreams for a Soviet future echoing in their modest home, a wooden house with peeling paint, a rusted stove humming softly, the scent of bread heavy in the kitchen. The air hums with the murmur of a boy shaped by discipline as Alexeev excels in school, his report cards pristine, his teachers praising his diligence, the scent of chalk lingering as he becomes a model student, a beacon of Soviet ideals. The murmur of his potential a quiet promise in a region rebuilding from war's scars. But what shadows lurked beneath his perfect facade? After school, the Baltic's call proves irresistible, the air sharp with the scent of saltwater and freedom as Alexeev joins the Navy, the murmur of waves against the hull a siren song, his uniform crisp, a cleaner badge glinting on his chest. The scent of diesel heavy as he earns accolades for combat and political training, a communist through and through, the murmur of his service a stepping stone to greater things, the air tense with the anticipation of a man destined for leadership. What would he trade for that destiny? Rise in the forestry. Demobilized, Alexeev turns to another love, the forest, the air thick with the scent of pine and ambition as he enrolls in the Leningrad Forestry Academy, the murmur of lectures on timber and conservation filling the halls. His diploma earned with distinction, a cleaner certificate in hand, the scent of paper a symbol of his return to Kaliningrad, the air humming with the murmur of opportunity as the party offers him a role, an instructor in the local party committee. The scent of ink heavy as He signs on, the murmur of his ascent a quiet triumph, the air tense with the realization that his journey has just begun, the forest his kingdom to conquer. But at what cost would he rule? A new era of opportunity. By the late 1980s, Alexeev is director of Zeleznodorozhny's largest forestry, the air thick with the scent of sawdust and profit as the Soviet Union crumbles, the murmur of market reforms echoing through the region. A free economic zone in Kaliningrad opening doors, the scent of opportunity heavy as Polish and Lithuanian buyers clamor for timber, the air humming with the murmur of commerce, the forest's wealth a siren song. The scent of paper and contracts a promise of riches, the air tense. With the realization that the party's rules no longer apply, the murmur of a new game, one Alexeev is eager to play. What line would he cross to win? In a sunlit office, a deal was struck, but what deadly trap did it set? The warm air of August 18, 1994, fills Alexeev's office in Zeleznodorozhny, the scent of polished wood and fresh ink heavy as sunlight streams through a smudged window, casting golden rays across a cluttered desk. A rusted paperweight shaped like a Soviet star pinning down a stack of reports, the murmur of a typewriter echoing from the hall, the air humming with the promise of profit, the forest outside a green expanse of opportunity, its pines whispering secrets of wealth, the scent of pine. Resin drifting in, the murmur of a deal about to change everything, the air tense with the anticipation of a transaction that would seal three men's fates. What deadly trap did Alexeev set with a smile? The scent of paper and deceit fills the air, the office a stage for a tale of betrayal. The Polish businessmen arrive. Mieczysław Kowalewski and Mirosław Wilk step into the office, the air thick with the scent of their cologne and ambition, their suits crisp, cleaner briefcases in hand. The murmur of their Polish accents a stark contrast to the Russian hum of the forestry. The scent of opportunity heavy as they greet Alexeev, his smile warm, a cleaner contract on the desk, the air humming with the murmur of a bargain too good to refuse, the scent of paper a promise of profit, the air tense with the realization that this deal, timber at a third of the European price, could make them rich, the murmur of their trust in Alexeev a fatal misstep. What did they miss in his calculated gaze? Their young driver, Anzej Danilowicz, waits outside, the air sharp with the scent of diesel as he leans against their Fiat 125, its paint a faded red, a rusted hubcap glinting in the sun, the murmur of the engine cooling a quiet hum. The scent of the forest heavy as he gazes at the pines, the air tense with the anticipation of a quick trip, the murmur of his dreams, a new start, a better life, echoing in his mind, the air humming with the innocence of youth, unaware of the darkness lurking within. The man his bosses trust. What price would his innocence pay? A deal too good to be true. The contract is signed, the air thick with the scent of ink and greed as Alexeev's pen scratches across the paper, the murmur of Kowalewski's assurance is a quiet hum, the scent of 16.5 million rubles, $7,500. Heavy as the cash changes hands, the air humming with the murmur of a deal sealed, the scent of paper a promise of timber, the air tense with the realization that Alexeev holds the money, the murmur of his excuse a sick accountant, a lie that buys him time. The air heavy with the weight of his deception, the Poles trust a noose they don't yet feel. What did Alexeev plan to do with their faith? Alexeev's first betrayal. Alone after the Poles leave, the air grows cold with the scent of betrayal as Alexeev burns his copy of the contract, the murmur of flames consuming paper a quiet crackle, the scent of smoke heavy as he pockets the cash. The air humming with the murmur of his plan, the scent of paper ash a symbol of his intent, the air tense with the realization that he never meant to deliver, the murmur of his greed a siren song, the forest outside a silent witness to his descent, the air heavy with the weight of a man who chose theft over honor, the murmur of a storm brewing, a storm that would claim lives. How far would he go to bury his secret? In the heart of a Kaliningrad forest, 3 men followed a promise, but what horror awaited them? The golden air of October 17, 1994, filters through the pines near Zelezno-Dorozhny, the scent of frost, pine resin, and the faint tang of earth heavy as Kowalewski, Wilk, and Danilowicz follow Alexeev into the forest. The murmur of their footsteps crunching leaves, the air humming with the promise of timber, the towering trees casting long shadows, their bark rough, a faint moss clinging to their trunks, the ground a patchwork of damp leaves and pine cones, the scent of opportunity a siren song, the murmur of a deal about to turn deadly, the air tense with the anticipation of a trap, the forest a silent predator waiting to strike. What horror awaited them in the green depths? The scent of pine and death fills the air, the forest a stage for a tale of slaughter. The Poles' final journey. The Fiat 125 is parked near the Mazur-Sky Canal, the air sharp with the scent of diesel and frost as Danilowicz locks the door, the murmur of the engine cooling a quiet hum, the scent of the canal's icy water heavy, its surface a mirror of gray. The air tense with the anticipation of a routine deal, the murmur of Kowalewski's confidence a quiet reassurance, the air humming with the trust they place in Alexeev, his smile warm, a cleaner axe in hand, the scent of steel a faint warning they don't. Heat, the air heavy with the weight of their mistake, the forest a labyrinth they'll never escape. What did Alexeev hide behind his smile? They walk in pairs, the air thick with the scent of pine and frost as Alexeev leads Wilk, the murmur of their conversation a quiet hum, the scent of opportunity heavy as Kowalewski and Danilowicz follow, the air tense with the murmur of their footsteps, the scent of the forest a deceptive calm, the air humming with the realization that they're far from help, the murmur of a woodpecker a distant echo, the air heavy with the weight of their isolation, the forest a trap closing in, the scent of pine a shroud for what's to come. What moment would shatter their trust? A brutal ambush. Alexeev quickens his pace, the air thick with the scent of frost and steel as he pulls ahead, the murmur of his voice a distraction, the scent of pine heavy as he points to a tree, the air tense with the murmur of Wilk's turn. The scent of death a heartbeat away as Alexeev swings his axe, the air humming with the sickening thud of metal meeting flesh, the scent of pine a cruel irony as Wilk collapses, the air heavy with the weight of murder, the murmur of Kowalewski's shout a fleeting cry, the forest a silent witness to the slaughter, the air tense with the realization that there's no escape. What would Alexeev do next? A killer's precision. Alexeev pulls a makeshift shotgun from his coat, the air thick with the scent of gunpowder and frost as he fires, the murmur of the blast echoing through the trees, the scent of smoke heavy as Kowalewski falls, the air tense with the murmur of Danilowicz's flight, the scent of pine a cruel backdrop as he stumbles, the air humming with the thud of his fall, the scent of death a certainty as Alexeev reloads, the air heavy with the weight of a final shot, the forest a grave for 3 men, the murmur of the canal's icy waters a promise of concealment, the air tense with the realization that Alexeev planned every move, the scent of pine a shroud for his crime. How would he erase the evidence? In a quiet Polish town, 3 families waited for their men, but what grim truth would they uncover? The chilly air of October 18, 1994, fills the small Polish town of Suwałki, the scent of wood smoke, damp leaves, and the faint tang of despair heavy as Iona Wilk and Mariana Kawaluska sit in a modest living room. The murmur of a clock ticking on the wall, the air humming with the absence of their husbands, the scent of boiled cabbage lingering from a forgotten meal, the air tense with the anticipation of a call that never comes, the murmur of their fear a quiet storm, the scent of paper heavy. As they clutch photos of Mieczysław Kowalewski and Mirosław Wilk, the air heavy with the weight of their dread, the murmur of a third family, Anzej Danilowicz's father, echoing their grief, the air tense with the realization that something is terribly wrong. The scent of despair a shroud over Suwałki. What grim truth would they uncover in Russia? The scent of fear and loss fills the air, Suwalki's stage for a tale of anguish. The family's desperate search. The women call hospitals, the air thick with the scent of antiseptic and dread as they dial, the murmur of nurses' voices a quiet hum, the scent of paper heavy as they check morgues, the air tense with the murmur of their pleas, the scent of hope fading as each call yields nothing, the air humming with the realization that their men are gone, the murmur of Danilowicz's father a broken echo, the air heavy with the weight of his son's absence, the scent of despair a crushing force, the air tense. With the decision to go to Russia, the murmur of their resolve a fragile thread, the scent of paper in their travel documents a lifeline to answers. What would they find in Zeleznodorozhny? They arrive in Zeleznodorozhny, the air sharp with the scent of pine and frost as they step off the bus, the murmur of the forest a quiet hum, the scent of the forestry office heavy as they enter, the air tense with the murmur of the secretary's words, the scent of paper a grim confirmation as she points them to Alexeev, the air humming with the realization that he was the last to see their husbands, the murmur of their hope a flickering flame, the air heavy with the weight of their questions, the scent of pine a cruel reminder of the forest where their men vanished, the air tense with the anticipation of confronting Alexeev, the murmur of their fear a quiet storm. What lies would he tell to cover his tracks? Alexeev's deceptive calm. Alexeev greets them, the air thick with the scent of deceit and frost as he opens his door, the murmur of his voice a quiet calm, the scent of pine heavy as he gestures to a chair, the air tense with the murmur of his lies, the scent of paper a faint echo as he claims ignorance, the air humming with the realization that he's rehearsed this moment, the murmur of his confidence a chilling mask, the air heavy with the weight of his deception, the scent of pine a shroud for his crime. The air tense. With the women's growing doubt, the murmur of their grief a quiet plea, the air humming with the realization that they've been deceived, the scent of despair a crushing force, the air heavy with the weight of their return to Poland, the murmur of their resolve to find the truth a fragile thread. What would the police uncover in their absence? The investigation begins. In Kaliningrad, Nikolay Vingreter takes the case, the air thick with the scent of paper and resolve as he reviews the file, the murmur of his team's voices a quiet hum, the scent of ink heavy as he notes the border crossing, the air tense with the murmur of a lead, the scent of paper a promise of justice as he heads to the forestry, the air humming with the realization that Alexeev is the key, the murmur of his suspicion a quiet storm. The forest outside a silent witness to the crime, the air. Heavy with the weight of a manhunt, the scent of pine a grim reminder of the graves it hides. What would Vingreter find in the forest depths? In a snowy forest, hunters stumbled upon a nightmare, but would justice bury the forest butcher? The frosty air of November 13th, 1994, blankets the forests near Zeleznodorozhny, the scent of pine, frozen earth, and the faint tang of decay heavy as hunters trudge through the snow, the murmur of their boots crunching ice, the air humming with the anticipation of a kill, the towering pines casting long shadows, their bark rough, a faint moss clinging to their trunks, the ground a patchwork of snow and leaves, the scent of death a chilling whisper as one hunter spots the shape in the clearing. The murmur of his shout a quiet alarm, the air tense with the realization that this is no deer, the scent of horror heavy as they uncover 3 mutilated bodies, the air heavy with the weight of a crime that would shake 2 nations, the murmur of their discovery a scream in the silence, the forest a graveyard unmasked. Would justice bury the forest butcher, or would he escape the noose? The scent of pine and dread fills the air, Kaliningrad a stage for a tale of horror and reckoning. The gruesome discovery. The bodies lie in a shallow ditch, the air thick with the scent of decay and frost as investigators arrive. The murmur of their voices a quiet hum, the scent of paper heavy as they document the scene, the air tense with the murmur of forensic findings. The scent of gunpowder a faint echo as experts note gunshot wounds, the air humming with the realization that blades were used, The scent of steel a grim reminder of the axe, the air heavy with the weight of a calculated slaughter, the murmur of. The canal's icy waters a chilling clue, the air tense with the realization that the killer hid the remains, the scent of pine a shroud for the crime, the air heavy with the weight of a community's horror, the murmur of Alexeev's name a quiet storm. What evidence would break his lies? Alexeev's downfall. Vingreter confronts Alexeev, the air thick with the scent of paper and tension as they sit in the interrogation room, the murmur of the investigator's voice a quiet hum, the scent of ink heavy as he presents the border logs. The air tense with the murmur of Alexeev's calm, the scent of deceit a faint echo as he repeats his story, the air humming with the realization that he's lying, the murmur of a phone call a turning point, the air heavy with the weight of the blacklight's findings, the scent of paper a damning proof as blood-stained dollars are revealed, the air tense with the murmur of Alexeev's defeat, the scent of despair a crushing force as he confesses, the air heavy with the weight of his admission, the murmur of the canal's depths a grim confirmation, the air tense with the realization that he acted alone, the scent of pine a haunting echo of his crime. What drove a man of honor to such depths? The trial and its aftermath. The air of May 1995 in the Kaliningrad courtroom is thick with the scent of paper and justice as Alexeev faces trial, the murmur of the judge's voice a quiet hum, the scent of ink heavy as the verdict is read. The air tense with the murmur of the death sentence, the scent of despair a crushing force as the victims' families weep, the air humming with the realization that closure comes at a cost, the murmur of Poland's relief a quiet echo, the air heavy with the weight of a diplomatic crisis. Averted, the scent of paper a faint hope as Chernomyrdyin's visit proceeds, the air tense with the realization that Alexeev may yet live, the murmur of a potential reprieve a chilling twist, the air heavy with the weight of a man who may never pay the full price, the scent of pine a haunting reminder of the forest scars. Will the forest butcher's shadow ever fade? Don't scroll past. Hit like and subscribe if you're ready for the next twisted story.